Okay, it's 3 o'clock, so I'm going to gavel this meeting to order. This is the Technology Committee meeting for the Beaufort County School Board, dated November 20th, 2023. I am joined here by our Head of Technology, Mark Shohan, fellow committee member, Carlton Dallas. And let's see, if you guys will help me do the Pledge of Allegiance, it'd be much appreciated.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
So move, Madam Chair.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I have been made aware that we have no public comments. The media has been properly notified, and this is being live streamed on YouTube. So with that, we'll go ahead and move to item 2, update on district software. Mr. Shohan?
Okay, per the committee's request, we converted the file into an Excel sheet to make it more easily searchable and added the columns of, I know we added the price, and I think there was whether it was a web-based or non-web-based. And there are drop downs on each column now to make it easier to disseminate that information.
Yeah, I appreciated that. And that's why I did just a quick search, and I was surprised that Munis was not our most expensive software, but it was Dykno. So, Mr. Dallas, do you have any questions about this right out of the gate?
Yeah. One of the things I was looking for was the ability to actually aggregate by major group, like ISD, business app, those types of things. And then I saw where Mr. Chowan had actually broken out. I didn't see this the first time, so it may have been there. So my apologies if I overlooked it. Broke it out by, I think it was 8 different subcategories.
Right.
So if there's a way, and it sounds like you left it so that a more proficient technology person would be able to sum it up and get totals. But what I was looking for was where we could see what's the total cost for ISD, what's the total cost for those different groups. Is that inherent in what's been created so far, Mr. Chowan?
You can break it down by just the ISD department, and then you would have to highlight those rows and drop them in another spreadsheet to make it a little bit easier. There's just a lot of data on this. I could check with, let me check with our Excel people. I've got a couple of people that are a lot better at Excel than I am. Let
me tell you, the best thing ever, and I've been doing this at work because I deal with a lot of CSVs, and Excel's time consuming. Now, Excel does have Copilot, but if you, that's what I love about it. If you upload this into data analysis and Chat GPT, as long as it still exists, it'll run Python, and you can just basically say, hey, I'd like to know the total amount spent by department, and it'll do it for you.
Yes.
So I can, yeah.
I can't do that. I'm sorry.
I bet you can. We'll see. But
okay.
Yeah.
So if Mr. Chowan, if you could group it like that, and I can huddle with you after the meeting to show what I'm actually talking about. Finance in their budget for 2024 did something similar, and it was very easy for me to go through and look at the amounts by group, which is what I was looking for. So if that's okay with Madam Chair, I can, share with you what I'm what I was hoping to get to aid this tortoise in this race, and then run it by the Madam Chair and see if she's okay with that. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, it's fine with me. However you guys, I like to play and do my own data analysis. And what's nice is you can just ask it questions like, in plain English. So saves a lot of time. But however you want to get that information, Mr. Dallas is great.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
do. I like seeing it broken down by that as well. And I did look, and it looks like we're at about 72% cloud-based, which I think is what you had told us earlier, somewhere in that range.
I think it's a little higher than that, but yeah, somewhere in the low 80s, mid 80s. Yes.
So,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Finish what you're saying.
Oh, I was just saying that we continuously move about 5% almost every year. But I figure once we get to that or low 90s, 95 range, that's when we're going to hit that kind of stagnant point where we're only left with some of those legacy products that are still have to remain on site.
So one thing I was just curious about, like I said, I did a analysis. I just sorted it by cost, and Dike Now, which I was not particularly familiar with, was our most expensive software. So I was just kind of curious what it was. And one thing that was intriguing to me is one of its big selling points is it does a lot of utilization reports. Do you guys look at those?
We do not as much as ISD does. ISD basically rolls that out because it's normally our educators that are using it. It's a great tool. It allows the teacher to take control or be able to see all the screens of all the students' devices. So very easily they would know if somebody's off task, they're looking at a music video or they're searching for something they shouldn't. So it's a very quick way to get the teacher or get the teacher's class in order. The teacher also has the ability within her their teacher console to lock the internet for that class. The good thing about it is whatever the teacher does during that dyno session is only for the time allotted for that teacher's class period. That's one of the problems we had in the past with other programs similar, is that if the teacher forgot to release that student, they would go into their next class and still be locked to that teacher's classroom. So we've overcome a lot of those problems. But we still haven't got 100% utilization by our teachers yet in this program. Some are still old school and don't really like it, but it's all comes down to teacher tactics and what they enjoy.
What do you think the percentage utilization is?
I would say probably 65 to 70%. I could probably have Colleen pull a report on that in ClassLink to see who's using it.
Because I think this is the kind of thing, and I think Mr. Dallas has talked about this as well, in terms of trying to get it. It's a proxy for looking at how attentive kids are, right?
Yes.
And so if we had a higher utilization rate, and it'd be interesting to see the utilization rate by school, or by grade, and how much it's being required. Because as I understand it, they can see all the screens, and if they see a kid on YouTube, they can shut that down, like right there.
Correct. Yes.
So to me, it would really give us an idea of what's going on in the classroom as we talk, we've been talking about this SC Ready and the report cards and all that, to have that complementary piece of data to say, okay, well, here's one of the things we're dealing with in this grade level. They're constantly going on YouTube, or there's, you could run some really great reports, I think, that would kind of allow the district and then show the board what the district is doing in terms of trying to cut down those distractions, because in the parent community, there's a ton of discussion about screens and distractions, right? So I just thought it was interesting. I didn't realize how useful that program was, but it's at 65% with the amount of money we're spending for it. We should be pressing people to adopt it.
That's a total guess. I have not run a report on it, so I'm just kind of throwing that out. And I probably shouldn't do that.
No, I'm just saying whatever the percentage is, if it's sub 90 at $500,000, let's figure out how to get that going.
And it's especially important once those kids get to about 5th grade, because that's when those hormones start kicking in and their attention span lessens so much.
Yeah, and I think that one thing, like I said, there's a movement afoot. I brought it up to the board, this no phones thing, but we're just seeing kids so distracted. And you look at that and how that correlates to a test score. If you go, okay, well, this classroom, for example, if you had a classroom in particular that had a poor score, and is it the teacher, or is it the fact that the kids are constantly on other websites? And is there something, you know, that can be done with that? So I think it's good supplementary data.
Yeah, there was an interesting study done about the amount of pedestrians hit by cars in the past, I think, 5 years because of people distracted by text messaging and their phones.
Well, and now there's all those reminders basically where if you, my car does it all the time because I have a Tesla and the alarm will go off for the mailbox because it reads it as a person. So it thinks I'm like, but yeah, it'll get your attention if you're drifting off for some reason. So anyway, so I think that I'm going to play with this some more, but I thought this was great information and I don't want to, monopolize the conversation. So Mr. Dallas, hop in here at any point, but I really feel like up until now, I haven't had a understand the backbone of technology, especially from a software standpoint that the district had. So I find this really, really helpful as a starting off point for discussions about like DICNO and discretion or distractions. Mr. Dallas, did you have anything else?
I'm sorry, I had to move my Wi-Fi connection was getting sort of iffy there, so I had to move to a different spot in the house. I totally agree what you said about utilization and being able to identify where the kids' attention and focus is drifting, because I think having that type of visibility into the classrooms and the teacher and to the students, users themselves, is going to help us make sure kids are focused on learning and thereby raising their overall student scores, which is really a bubbling lava pit in the community. And so I think we need to get ahead of that, and I can see where that will help. So utilization is something I totally support and have mentioned before. The other thing is, and the way you'll be able to segment it, hopefully, Mr. Chowan, will be beneficial to understanding the cost segment. Where I'm going is I'd like for each unit that requests software, they know how much they're spending on it. That's a very highly visible metric, integer, that people can look at it and trend it over 3 years. So we can see what the trend is. And then again, ultimately, beginning to correlate back to all this investment that we're making, is it actually helping raise student scores? And then the third overall strategic view is, again, a really comprehensive district-wide strategic view of where the demand's coming from, and also the efficiency that will be needed to fund that demand. And by that, I mean, are there software packages that the utilization is extraordinarily low and we're paying a pretty good premium for it? And then if someone requests software, are they willing to sort of begin to think, what do they expect to get from the district purchasing that software? Will it result in us being able to take cost out of the structure? And I'll share this. When I looked at the financial presentation, one of the things that really shocked me, and of course I'm still learning, so bear with me on this, but one of the things that shocked me is we are spending, out of the $187 million operating budget, we're spending 27.8 million of that 187 million, 15%, on SPED and preschool SPED. And I had no idea the cost of us providing that, which we should, not questioning that. But I think there's an opportunity for us to say, hey, okay, we're doing a lot of things that other educational options, charter and private, don't have to do. Because I think people aren't placing the appropriate value on public education and all the societal gaps that we end up filling. So those are the three things I'm looking, hopefully, to support, and not support. I'm going to support wherever the board goes, but to encourage us to look at that and try to get a better message out there. So thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Smith. I know you're getting settled in. Did you have any comments about the changes to the software spreadsheet that they provided?
No, not this time.
Okay. Yeah, so one thing, and then I'm curious about, and this goes again to the ongoing theme.
Oh. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. This goes to kind of the ongoing theme. We use Frontlines, well, we only use not Frontline, we use PowerSchool just for registration. Is that right?
Yes, and for the student information system, the SIS.
Where is that? Because I see PowerSchool registration. Is that the SIS there?
Data services, yes. The registration is there, the test server. The actual PowerSchool is covered by the state of South Carolina. So we only have to buy the auxiliary programs like registration, and we have to pay for a test server. What we use the test server for is at the end of every year, we save a copy of that server and move it to a virtual space, because every year our data services department has to run different queries on the data for that year. So we have to keep that whole year server intact. So if they need to run reports on fiscal year 2022, they will pull up the 2022 server and they can see all the numbers for that year. So that's the reason why we use the test server.
So the state of South Carolina requires PowerSchool for
Yes.
their SIS, and the
Yes.
state pays for it. So they've got a contract with the state, not with the individual districts.
Correct.
So we then just add on the PowerSchool registration module, like it's an
Yes.
extra thing. So I guess then my question is too, some of these other things, like some of the frontline stuff, some of the, different programs could be covered under PowerSchool. So I just wonder, I'm assuming that there's discussions being had, because it seems like to me, the more we could do through PowerSchool, since it's already, mandated, would be easier.
The biggest thing with Frontline is Frontline's more geared towards staff and staff training, and staff resources, and not students. PowerSchool is mainly dedicated just for students.
Right. Okay.
So we would need to bring HR in the conversation for Frontline.
No. I figured, but I thought PowerSchool had a HR component.
They do have a bunch of modules out there, but I don't know how much they've been researched.
That's my question. Yeah, that's exactly my question. Because they have the, what do they call it? PowerSchool Talent or something like that under their unified solution. So they have a whole human resources part, and I'm just thinking, I don't know, I'm kind of on a personal trend where just getting rid of some of these one-offs because they just don't work together as well. Might be something to consider. Anyway.
Madam Chair, may I follow up on your comments,
Please.
ma'am?
I love it.
Yeah, so I 1,000% agree with Madam Chair on this. So when we talk about when people in the future preferably requesting software, they would have done some research to say the acquisition of this particular software is going to eliminate us having to pay, what was the one you said, PowerSchool? Instead of paying them 100%, is there a way we can pay them 75%, which would be offset by the acquisition of this software, instead of this software being incremental to the base cost of PowerSchool, because that just means we continuously add cost to the system, and there's duplication and there's lack of interoperability, which is one of the things that every software package wants to have their unique application and sort of carve out their space. But whereas Madam Chair is saying, those that can handle multiple functions across several different spheres would tend to be the preferred way to go, as long as the functionality is there.
And I think to Mr. Shohan's point, obviously, whatever the district may have reasons for going frontline, right? They're all not. So I just want to know that people are evaluating that. So that might be something to ask operations to look into.
Mr. Smith's hands up.
Hey, Mr. Smith.
I also I think what frontline is in terms of HR. I believe we had some issues a couple years ago, and we asked the HR to look into what they needed to better navigate the district, into what programs may better help them as a department. And I believe that may be where that coming from, but don't quote me on that. But I do remember when we were in operations, when in terms of I think we were talking about
Grievances.
about grievances, and I think that program was a better program to help them along with the grievances process and to be able to track them and to be able to work that stuff in there. I do believe that's where the frontline process, the frontline program came in at, and I don't think at that time that what's the other program that we're talking about now? Power School had offer them that option, but we can check with HR and have them to give us some information on that. But in terms of Power Schools also geared towards parents, because parents check on. I'm sure you may know, Ingrid Bora, as a parent go on Power Schools and check their kids' grade to see what their kids have turned in, what they have not turned in. So Power School is definitely a tool that I think that we're getting parents and everyone in the community is getting accustomed to using. But in terms of that other component of frontline, I do believe that was something that we require them to come up with a system. I believe that frontline might be the system, but we can confer that with the HR director after this meeting, I'm sure. Do Mr. Shohan.
Yeah, I think that the higher level technology discussion we're having is a good one. I do use Power School. I get little pop-up notifications, your son's grade is now a whatever, and notifications that they were absent. But a lot of them do this. There's probably 4 or 5 pretty big SIS learning management systems, et cetera. And from a technology committee standpoint, what I'm interested in is I just want to know that you guys are like that. We're not just sticking with frontline, even though it's cumbersome, not interoperable and more expensive, but we're sticking with it because it's what people are familiar with, rather than pushing people in to say, look, let's come up with a more streamlined, cost-efficient system and we'll train you past sort of your comfort level. Because the district obviously can pick the system that works best for them. Like that's, not something we as a board can decide for them. I just want to know that those conversations are being had. So anyways, this is really, to me, this is a very helpful jumping off point to really start having some of these other discussions. So
and I will say that the departments are really good about when that 5-year time's up for a piece of software, that they invite us down when they start looking to renew or looking at other options to bring into the fold.
Awesome.
So can I follow up on that with just a minor question, please?
Certainly.
Mr. Chowan, what does that looking into bringing in a new option, what does that look like? How rigorous of an analysis is that in terms of cost and the numerical benefit of bringing that new one in? Madam Chair has already helped me learn about interoperability, but what about scalability? Is Frontline scalable, or is Power School scalable so that it could take over some of the functions currently embedded in Frontline and we eliminate Frontline?
Once again, I would have to get with HR about that, because technology is a resource. So we come in to make sure, whatever program they're looking to either swap out with is compatible with our network, and we can put them on the right path to pull their data into the new program. But we generally let the departments make the decision on manpower for their department, and we just work on the interoperability on the hardware and technical side.
So that may be something for us to have that if there's a strategic review, a rigorous one, those types of questions, so that there's a very tight discipline methodology for bringing in new software. I'm not saying there isn't there. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying, please.
Mr. Smith, hands up.
Oh, hey, Mr. Smith.
Also, in terms of, I think I heard my colleague said that there were a large amount of SPED process. A lot of SPED programs too that we're using. Was that correct?
No, I was speaking to not this presentation. In preparing for the finance discusussion, I was going through all the documentation, and the budget for 2024 has SPED having right at $28 million. And my point was, general public, John and Joe and Jane citizen don't know all the amazing things that the public school district does in behalf of supporting society, and those things need to continue. my ultimate point is, I think we have to do a better job of messaging, because the other competing educational options talk about what they're able to do and their better expense ratio, but they don't
Gotcha.
talk about what we have to carry per legislative mandate or tradition, or just a huge gap in what society is providing. So that's where that's coming from. Not total support of SPED. And the other one, for those who might be interested, looking at the financials, multilingual learning, that's 7.3 million. And that's another group that maybe we need to devote more resources to in terms of helping our Spanish speaking and other language speaking students get up the curve faster. So that's all. Thank you.
So, well, Mr. Dallas, and Ms. English, the reason why I brought that up, because my my logic was that if we have departments who have a large amount of programs, then maybe that would maybe a good idea for us, for them to educate us and to tell us the difference in understanding the process of thinking and in terms of these processes, because sometimes, even though like Ms. Borak said, that some of these programs may overlap, but there may be reasons of why some of them do it and some of them don't. And I think on the financial committee, I think it would be great for us to understand that. So that was my point. I definitely don't have a problem with that. That was my point of bringing that up.
Agree totally.
If that makes sense.
Yes, sir. Agree totally.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Shohan, this is thanks again for this information. I think it's going to give us lots of things to think about, especially for Trace.
Do we have a total of how much all these programs cost?
I did my own calculation and it was just shy of 2 million, but I think there are some
totals.
Okay.
But I do have it where you can break up each department and it'll show all the software for that department.
Okay.
And then you can just do an auto sum of that column. I cheat a lot.
Yeah. That's kind of what I did.
Hey, Mr. Smith, I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Smith, one of the discussions that took place is I'm a technophobe, not a technophile. So one of the things I'm looking for is aggregate totals by subgroup and then by the major group, so that we can see very easy visually how much, at a glance, just like we did in the financial roll up of the budget. So agree with that.
I definitely do agree. And also one thing I just asked Mr. Shohan too, that when we do have this some great information, and we could have a date on it, so that we can just so we can know.
It is right here. It's the terms of the contract.
Oh, no, I'm talking about on the actual document.
Oh,
just
when I created the document. Okay.
Right, so we know when the document was created. So we refer back to different meetings.
Gotcha.
We can know exactly when that was.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for continuing to improve the document, Mr. Shohan. If it's okay with fellow committee members, you guys want to move on to item number 3, which is an update on student damages?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I had a follow-up question. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, Mr. Shohan, but we can go ahead and look at these initial numbers here.
Yeah, we can start looking at it. I will be able at the next meeting, or probably right after the Thanksgiving break. I forgot to pull that data and didn't transcribe it from last meeting's notes. But I did send out a email to our bookkeepers. Our bookkeepers are responsible for the promissory notes or anything that we do to help families in needs. So I'm waiting to hear back from our bookkeepers and our social workers, and I'll be able to get the other information you asked for.
And to the rest of the committee, what I was looking for and we had talked about was if the first, and I know this as a parent, the first damage that has to be repaired is free, right? Or is it like 25? It's free, right? The first cracked screen is free. And then, but if you do it again, you got to pay for the repair. And, since so many of our schools and students have, economic concerns, which is kind of wondering how big of a burden that was. So what I was asking for, and we had talked about in a previous meeting, was the number of people that basically get a financial waiver. In other words, they got the bill, but because of their financial circumstances, the bill was reduced or waived. I'm not sure which we do. There was
It depends on the circumstances of the family itself. Some are completely waived. We also go to student services. They maintain a small fund of money from some different businesses that we can also use to help certain families in need. And we generally go to student services and our social workers to help identify those families in need. So it could be anything from McKinney-Vento to something like that.
Now, as I'm asking these questions with the parent hat on a little bit, just because I know what happens in the schools. So my son broke, and he said, and I believe him, he's pretty conscientious. His screen, he went to shut it and the screen just cracked, right? Which happens with these laptops. They're pretty hardy, but he just kept the cracked screen until the end of the school year so that it couldn't break again. So when you look at 6,800 plus broken LCD screens out of, we have 21,000 students. So, but I'm not sure if every student, that's a substantial number.
Correct.
That is what, someone do the math for me. That's a third probably of the screens cracked per year. 1,800, which is about, just shy of 10%, get broken multiple times. And so then the family would be on the hook for the cost of that. So I think that is a consideration. When we look at some of these refresh cycles to look and see, are there other laptops, desktops, Chromebooks, computers that are less prone to damage? Or, how do we handle that? Because if a third of our computer screens have to be replaced, that seems like a lot. And I would imagine it's mostly in the middle schools, right?
A lot more damage comes out of our middle schools than any other subset of students. Yes.
Madam Chairman.
Please jump in.
Yeah, I just want to applaud Mr. Chowan because this numerical graph, very, very simple. All of a sudden, it causes the viewer to say, okay, I'm seeing a trend here. I'm seeing a pretty egregious percentage of faulty product. And what's the cause of that? And so for me, seeing something like this allows me to drill down, and Madam Chair has already done it. Ask the right questions of why are these percentages so high? What's the quality of the equipment that we're buying? And are those repeat students with multiple broken LCDs and multiple broken accessories? What behavioral trends might be evident in that particular population that we could help address with them in a positive manner? So just want to comment on this because this very simple, but for me, it said a lot.
One of the biggest trends we find that we try to convey back to our students every year is to not walk around with your device in your hand, and when you're transporting your device, to keep it in the bag we gave you. Even if you put that whole laptop bag inside of your book bag, but don't just put your laptop and your book bag surrounded by a bunch of books, because our kids in general have a bad habit of slinging their bags when they walk into a classroom and they throw it down by their chair. And when it's not in that protective case that has the extra padding on the corners, it getting slammed like that on that hard VCT floor causes a lot of those cracks in our LCDs. But a lot of it is just human error of, leaving your laptop right on the edge of your desk, and then you turn around and you knock it off.
Isn't it like the same way they treat their cell phones?
Well, yeah.
A lot of them replace cell phones.
Very, very, very frequently.
Crack screens.
Although I'll tell you what, Otter, those have made it where I've egregiously dropped my phone and been just stunned to find it has survived with the new, and they're not even obtrusive. So those, I don't know. I think we're getting better about that as a society with the screens getting better just in general. But I guess what I would like to do and I can do it on my own, or if you have data, I would like to know if this is average for school districts or if we're above average.
Good point.
And I completely could see us being like, yeah, if you're going to have a one-to-one school, which we are 100% committed to, you're going to have to expect about a third of your screens are going to break at some point during the year. But if that's not the typical experience for other districts, then it might be worth looking at when we go to refresh cycles to really evaluate the product. And then the cost. Because I know one thing, I mean, I am not necessarily, I was much more of a Chromebook fan until Chrome has, to my opinion, has kind of gone a little off the deep end with their extensions, and they're causing a lot of headaches. And so now I'm down on Chromebooks more because they used to be so simple, but now Chrome's trying to, do all this data privacy and whatnot. But I do think they're cheaper, to repair. And I think that they maybe are a little bit harder, but I don't know that to be true.
Also in thinking of our numbers, I think 1/3 of our population would not be real bad. And also when you change the product of what we go to for students, I believe the product that we go to for adults are really around about the same thing. So now you're talking about a different working on you talk about more tools. So you have to, so there's a lot of questions that go in the way of that. And also you're talking about also in purchasing more possibly programming that go with a different program versus now the district is pretty much fully Hewlett Packard.
Yeah, we're pretty much an HP shop except for some of our servers in our schools are Dell servers that.
But don't we have iPads in K through 2?
K through 1, we have iPads, and we also use some iPads for different students in our SPED program. Depending on what they're more capable with, we will give SPED students an iPad or a Windows laptop at the higher grades, depending on which meet their learning requirements better.
And I concur, Mr. Smith, 100%. You don't want to be casual about switching operating systems and devices and all that sort of thing. I don't think it's something you should embark on lightly. However, what is it to cost to repair a broken LCD?
Could you pull up that PDF? Can I pull up another PDF for you?
Please.
I've got our repair prices. The very first page on that PDF is the price list.
This one?
Yep. So that's
$400, right? Is that
a laptop screen's yeah, I can't see it for the
it's $389. I'm rounding up to $400.
Okay, $389. There we go.
And see, Mr. Smith, if you look at this, an iPad is $300 to replace, and it comes with an OtterBox case, which I do think does a better job of protecting damage. The HP replacement is almost $700. A screen, and we had 1,800, slightly over 1,800 people that had to pay $389 for a screen replace. So for the majority of the people in our district, that's a significant cost to absorb. So my thought is just as the board, in terms of, representing constituents and doing financial oversight, just making sure that we're not outside the norm for that, and that we are able to cushion the blow for a lot of our families. $389 is a big bill to get. So, but
yeah,
the
biggest problem we're seeing is our screen price used to be about $180 to $200, but as soon as they started combining the touch and LCD into one thing, it basically doubled the price.
Right. So where does the insurance coming in? Does the district not have insurance on these devices?
We have what's called accidental replacement. So every year a student or staff member gets one accidental breakage. So whatever it is, if they drop it and it breaks, the screen and the keyboard, that happened in one instant, that would be one repair. So it would get repaired. And if they broke it again, they would then have to pay for that second damage.
Anyway, so that's really good information. And I think if you, at the next meeting, you could follow up and just let us know, how that's landing on different families, just to make sure that I just feel like as a board member, I trust you guys to make the technology decisions, but I also think saying, hey, this is a burden on some families, and let's make sure if it, it's and my husband's a surgeon, if you're going to operate on somebody, there's the possibility of a complication. So you want to make sure that you needed to do that surgery, so let's just make sure that we're looking at all that and considering that, because I know, like I said, I'm not as keen on Chromebooks at the moment, but I know that tablets are cheaper to replace and less prone to damage. I would be interested to compare the HP X360 or other laptops with Chromebooks or with iPads to see if we're an outlier for that.
And if I could add on to that, I think what Madam Chair mentioned a few minutes ago, and consistent with Mr. Smith's point, actually looking externally to see districts that use similar equipment as we use, and what type of repair issues and percentages. I mean, actual numbers. What type of percentages are they experiencing versus us? It may be that it's a behavioral issue that they have, worked to solve, and maybe we can follow that path as well, so that we minimize the cost until we can get the optimum equipment in the hands of our students and staff. Thank you.
I will say, from our monthly SCASA meetings up in Columbia and different conferences around the country we've gone to, that pretty much all technology people say the same thing, that middle schoolers, their hardest group subset of kids, and they have a lot of damages with that group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Do we have a peer group that we sort of compare against?
We work very closely with Charleston County School District, Berkeley County School District. And because they're of similar or a little bit bigger than us, we also use some of the same things. We use the same content filter. They do use Chromebooks in Berkeley County. And they do save money on the Chromebooks themselves, but then they have to put in a bunch more labs for the other programs and stuff that ISD wants to roll out. That has to be on Windows devices. So it's a little bit of a catch-22 with pricing. You have to look at the labs you have to fulfill and the discounted cost of the Chromebook.
Thank you.
But I can make some phone calls and get some ideas of what their damage rates look like.
Yeah, if you could just add a column for where they have the same type of equipment and what are their numbers, so that we could have that visual comparison very easily, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thanks so much for that, all that information again, Mr. Shohan. The only other thing that we have on the agenda was, and we didn't have materials in Diligent, but I believe Mr. Shohan has materials he can maybe throw up there or give to us, is on calling, let's see if I get this right, Bekunvarsky. Am I close?
Yes.
Okay. Who's our head of educational technology, did do a summary. Is that it there?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Of sort of outlining of the professional development and training, because that is another area that our committee has been interested in. It's part of the OE is, we have all this nice, beautiful software, and how are we making sure that it's getting implemented correctly and that people are trained to use it? And I will tell you, backstory with me is I have found that to not always be the case at the school level. I think at the district level, that's fine, but nothing derails an expensive piece of software other than people don't know how to use it. So this is, and Robin, if you wouldn't mind emailing that to Mr. Dallas and I, so we can look at it maybe even after the meeting. And
I'll spell it afterwards, and I will put it in the community after this meeting.
Thank you. And Ms. Bekunvarsky said that she's not available this week, but she could at our next meeting, which I think will be possibly in December, maybe January, that she would come and answer any questions we had.
Yes.
So there's not really a lot of conversation to be had because we're just kind of looking at it, but this is kind of a starting point for that conversation. Do either of you gentlemen have any questions of Mr. Shohan about our training and professional development?
No, ma'am.
And then also I would refer back to the software spreadsheet. Ms. Bekunvarsky put some good information in there on kind of some of the training specs to it. when training was done, who did the training. So that could be helpful.
One thing I would love to see, Mr. Shohan, and this may not be your department exactly, but I think we need to have and I know we do that big survey. What's it called? The
Upbeat.
Upbeat. Word ups and downs. Survey, but I would like to hear, because I do hear anecdotally, and I'm a parent, I'm in the school, I'm using the technology some. I do hear anecdotally from both teachers and parents that this software can be difficult to use. And I did share with you that one experience I had trying to do a registration process, and they basically referred me to Power School's customer service. And just get a sense of how people feel about the training and professional development, because I think we've got good programs that your department has put together. I'm not sure they're all trickling down the same. And then I think a lot of times we're expecting parents to help their kids get on something or do something. And I'm not sure if we have the resources. I don't think just sending them to the software companies, FAQ section of their website is going to be enough. So I would just love to know, maybe start with just some of the teachers, if they feel like they are sufficiently trained on the programs they're expected to use. And I would also include like the front desk staff, people that are doing some communication, that sort of thing. Because I may be completely wrong and maybe it's all going wonderfully, but I do have a lot of anecdotal evidence of people being frustrated only using 20% of a program because they don't understand or have never turned on or implemented the other 80%.
If I did it, I would do it to all staff just so we would get a good spattering of all of our software applications out there and don't leave any departments out.
Yeah. I just think it's something to consider. Yeah, Mr. Smith?
Also in the notion of what you just said too, in terms of the surveys, where is the information being stored at for the surveys?
We would have to create a survey for that to basically decide what we want to get back.
Well, I'm talking about as in what she just said, like as in the upbeat surveys and different surveys that get sent out to staff.
All of those are housed in all of those are housed within HR. HR facilitates all of those staff surveys and they maintain that data. So Ms. Walton would have that.
So HR is pretty much the only person the district who pretty much shoot out surveys.
They do a lot more on staff morale and staff what's pertinent to the staff. On our side, we might send out other surveys. Our communications department sends out a bunch like Bang the Gavel and stuff like that out to the community. So we would use Upbeat for inside for staff members, Bang the Gavel for more of a community information. And then we also have a piece of software called Survey Monkey that we throw out, and it could be for students, staff, or parents. So we've got multiple ways that we can get survey information out there. We generally just, if we do one, we'll just make the data depending on what kind of information we're looking for at the time. Right now, we'd be looking at staff satisfaction in regards to their daily software that they have to use.
Right, and the reason why I ask that is because we hear about these surveys, but there's just in general a whole bunch of different surveys, but we never receive it. And I had someone a while back ask me about what y'all do all these surveys, and do you read? Do you have more people that actually take time to read surveys? And I was like, I said, no, I think the people who send them out, they read the surveys, but she's like, but sometimes it includes different things that could be of importance to you guys, and some of the reasons why we figured them out is filling them out is because they were thinking that you look at it too, and so that kind of made me wonder, just in terms of, actually seeing it, where's it being housed, and what information is good for to review in terms of as the question she asked in terms of what parents would think about technology, the pulse of the schools, the climate, just a host of things in terms of bringing some of that information. Does that make sense, committee?
Hold on one second.
Um, Madam Chair, if you want to go first, I'll defer to you. If not, I have some thoughts.
Yeah, go ahead and tell me. I'm processing, so go ahead and share your thoughts and see if you've already got them ready to go.
Yeah, so
One of the things that was inherent in the finance presentation is that they identified. Wait a minute, I think I'm. Can you hear me?
You're echoing a little bit.
That's worse.
Okay.
All right. I think what is happening
Is on the finance presentation. Hopefully this is better. There
Yes, sir.
are 4 strategic goal areas. Excuse me, student achievement, teacher and administrative quality, school climate, and gifted and talented. And the budget showed 21 different areas, and which of those 4 goals that was expected to impact. Teacher and administrative quality was impacted by 11 of the 21 programs. Student achievement was affected by 5. School climate was affected by 5. So I think to Mr. Smith's point, I think there's some benefit to the board actually doing a drill down on what data in terms of aggregating the responses numerically are we getting, and then tracking that over 3 years to see if things are improving. So that was one of those surprising things to me. We are really doing great and focus on teachers and administrative quality and professional development and those types of things. There may be opportunity in student achievement and also school climate. And to Mrs. Boatwright's point, having a specific survey that asks, the targeted audience how they feel is one way of identifying baseline and then working to improve that. So just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty comfortable. I would pose a survey on this as a suggestion to the tech committee. I don't know all the considerations that would need to be taken into account. And I'm sorry, I'm still kind of at work just a little bit, but I do think that it would be worth looking at. Sorry. In terms of one thing, I think, especially with technology, you find that people are not willing to speak up. They may not, because they don't want to seem like they don't understand how to do it or something like that. And I just think, we're spending a lot of money on technology. It's doing a lot of heavy lifting in the district. It wouldn't be there might be a way to do it where, it's a positive rather than a negative.
Yep. Agree.
When you said what's worth looking at?
Just how people feel about whether or not they feel that they've been adequately trained and that they understand the software.
Okay, so you are saying looking at the information, looking at the the surveys will be worth looking at. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that putting a survey like that into the field, for lack of a better term, might not be a bad idea. I don't know how to go about doing that, and I would defer to Colleen and Mr. Shohan and Dr. Rodriguez, because there's a lot of factors. I've done a lot of surveys, so you can't just throw it out there. You've got to, do you do it as part of a larger survey? Do you add it to the Upbeat survey? Do you do it, in stage, and how they're going to track the responses? I'm just saying, I think that there is evidence that not everyone, and it may be user error too. I mean, let's be honest, Mr. Shohan. Like you said, and I don't think you were here quite yet, Mr. Smith, but we were talking about classroom management software that, doesn't have 100% adoption rate, because a lot of people are, they've been teaching for 35 years and they like the way they do it. So it may not be a question of training. It may be a question of just adoption. So to do a survey like this would be, or to do some sort of data gathering directly from the end users, which is another way to look at it. And I think you can look at that in terms of utilization by teacher, utilization by grade, utilization by school. You can also do like a survey. If you see low utilization, you can target a survey at that group and say, are you not using it because you like the way you do it? I work in a medical clinic where I'm constantly trying to shove technology down unwilling providers' throats. So is it because you don't like the technology, or is it because you feel like you just don't understand it? You need to have more training. You need to have more at the elbow support from people. So that, there's 100 different ways to come at it. My thought was just, I do think that there are a lot of teachers who don't feel comfortable with the technology. And so they're not using it relative to the amount of money we're paying for it. So how we get at that information, I would trust Dr. Rodriguez and Mr. Shohan and Ms. Beck-Wungarski to figure out how to do that.
Ms. Boatright, can I just add from a board perspective in technology?
Yeah.
So we're having issues with community, with board members wanting to not let go of paper because because it's not a matter of, you have the technology and all the things that you could do with highlighting and therefore we have those capabilities. But as you say, people are comfortable in how they learn, take notes or whatever, so they're not willing to give up the paper.
Yeah, and I think that it goes to
Madam Chair, I'm gonna have to leave right now after that scurrilous remark by pushing there.
Yeah, I think that, this goes back to utilization, right?
Yeah.
We're spending millions of dollars on software. Look at what, and I'm sure that there are some areas where it's being used much more. And maybe that's because I just think that there's a lot of unknowns about it. And if you're spending, from a financial oversight perspective, if these software programs we're spending a bunch of money on, but they're not being used, but they're good programs, maybe we just need to figure out why or where, or if there's additional training. Because even to like this Diligent thing, it's okay software. I don't love it. I don't need paper. And I've played around with some of it, but I even think, I could use some training on it. I don't know why the highlight disappears when I go off the document and then come back. So even within that,
we're still learning.
So then,
one of the things with communities, we're in the beginning, so we're a test. Our school district, we volunteer to be a test unit. So as like what you're saying, the highlights, we can go back and say, so this isn't working, and so we're in a test phase. We're guinea pigs.
100%. And if we bring in new software, if people struggle with it, they just drop it, right? And so then,
Exactly.
But that may not be fair to the software either. Like, hey, this is really useful software. Why aren't you guys using it? So it was just, I'm not saying we just throw out a survey monkey to teachers and ask them if they like their training. I just think that there's some way to look at the utilization. And if the utilization is because it's bad software, because they need more training, because they're old school and they prefer not to use the computer, all those different variables. But it's a lot of money, recurring costs every year.
Also, I think too, you were done?
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying also in terms of some of what you just said too. My point again, just to refocus refocus on what my point was. I think that there are enough surveys already sent out. I think some of the information that we want to know, people already sent some of that information. They already feel that they put some of that information on some of the surveys that are sent out. And their conclusion is that they feel as though we, as a board, that we are reading these surveys, in which we're not reading the surveys, and we don't look at these surveys. And so your point of we may want to create another one, but also some people feel that there are too many surveys. So with that being said, my point is that maybe some of these surveys that may answer some of those questions that you're asking, maybe we may need to see those surveys.
Yeah.
Is my point. That's the point that I'm bringing up. But I do see what you're saying in terms of creating one to be intentional about every single question on it that pertains to us. But also, I'm saying that people have also been asking me, hey, all the surveys that are being sent out, aren't y'all reading some of them? And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna lie, no, we're not reading them. But I believe that the people who send them out, the people who should be reading them are reading them. But some of those people, or some people, are intentions are that you know, or they feel as though the board is reading these services and we're really not. I'm not getting them. So I mean that's just something I want to put there as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. Surveys are useful tools, but they are also really complicated. So
So right now I got the do a survey on first staff feelings on software training. Does the board have any other topics they want us to survey on? Because normally we like to do at least 4 to 5 questions at a minimum to put out a survey.
yeah,
So
no,
if,
you don't want
if the board wants to think about it over the holiday and add a few things to it, I'd rather do it all at once.
I propose this because I also was thinking like this would be a great topic for the SIC meeting, right? Like for parents and saying, you know, are you guys using the technology? Here's a list of all the software we have. How much have you ever, you know, how much are you aware? But let me see if this is okay with the committee. If you guys, let's between now and our next meeting, think about that and just sort of think about what might be, you know, a useful approach, because I was kind of throwing it out there, but I will say, I think that the anecdotal evidence is pretty strong that, you know, people might need more. And I think sometimes it's just more at the elbow training, right? Like we've done the training module, you watch the video, and then you're trying to use it and you're struggling. And before you quit the software altogether, someone can come along and say, you know, what are you struggling with? So I think maybe what we'll do is this committee can think about it. And when Miss Beck Vumbarski is here at the next meeting, I think we'll make that a more fulsome discussion. This is sort of, let's do this as like pre-game. And then our next meeting, we'll think about it, talk to some people, have Miss Beck Vumbarski there and see if, what she would recommend.
Works for me.
Okay. Is that okay with you, Mr. Smith?
Well, actually, in terms of answering this question, if we're going to send out a survey, it needs to be. We don't need it. To me, my mind of thinking is, I can tell you right off a couple areas that we would want to shoot from the hip with. In terms of, I don't need anyone to come in here and draw me a picture and help me connect the dots. I can connect the dots. So I know what I want to know about as a board member who's been in this district for I mean, you know, for a while anyway. So I mean, I'm not really understanding in terms of what will take us a long time to want to give him the other four titles. I mean, right off, I can at least tell you 2. But I don't mind checking with colleagues to see what their lines of thinking is either. But I mean, the first one you said was what was it now?
We're going to survey. They want. It was recommended for staff and parents, but we're going to need to break those up. We probably start with staff feelings on software training.
Okay, right. So software training. In terms of climate, we can do climate. Also, in terms of also,
This would be just for technology.
Yeah.
I mean
That's what the survey is, just out of the technology committee. It's not. So when you're talking about climate and stuff, that's an HR.
Right, but my thing about it is though, if we're sending this out as a board, then even if then so my question is this in terms of when we initially started this conversation, in terms of asking about when I brought the initial conversation about all the surveys that are being sent out, that people are asking us questions about the services, that they're writing things down, that they are anticipating that we are reading or that we're getting. So my understanding is that we're captioning all of that. So if this, you never she never specifically said that this is going to be a technology survey that we sent out.
That's what they started with the conversation. So you're talking about the training for the software. So this is technology that
I think we're getting hung up on the word survey, because that was just sort of my first go-to. What I would like to see, Mr. Smith, is we didn't have a lot of information because Ms. Beck Vumbarski is in charge of this. And so we threw it in there because we had talked about bringing this up at this meeting. And so we have that preliminary document. So what I think is, what I would like to know as a board member, and it goes to utilization, is how are staff perceiving the amount of training and the amount of professional development they get? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a survey. It doesn't, and there could be other ways to look at that information, but that's the kind of thing I would like to hear back from, because I want to know if we're spending $2 million on software that people are using it, and that if they're not using it, I'd like to know why they're not using it. And so really that's what it was trying to get at. So I think we're getting hung up on the word survey and getting far afield in the sense of what the board's here to do. And I would say from the technology committee, I just would like, when Ms. Beckenvarsky comes back and we talk about professional development, what tools is the district using, or are they proposing that they use to assess, you guys hearing that? To assess whether or not that staff feels adequately trained. And that's so that's why I'm saying, let's take this time between now and then, give Ms. Beckenvarsky a chance to talk about it. And I certainly am not proposing, I think that would be an entirely different full board future topic type discussion to say that the board wanted to directly survey staff, because I don't think that's what the role of the board. I was just suggesting if there's some way for the district to let us know that the training, the people that are receiving the training feel like it's adequate.
Madam Chair, whatever.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I agree with the. Hold on one second. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So I think doing the request for information, basically attitudinal information, normally called a survey, would be beneficial on the technology side. And I think to answer Mr. Smith's concern about a more rigorous review of the survey, the climate survey, maybe we ask HR that be a board meeting agenda topic.
I think that comes in their report, their annual report. They usually report out, and they're reporting at the end of November during operations, where HR presents their annual report, and surveys and those kinds of things are usually a part of their report.
Yeah, that we did that last year. We had a very comprehensive data dump from that Upbeat survey. Got a lot of really good insight. So I would like to keep this one focused on training and utilization of software. And all I'm asking Mr. Shohan and Ms. Beckenvarsky is there any way that we can get staff feedback on what's currently being offered?
Okay, so then okay, what to answer your personal question, then yes, that would be a survey, and the survey would consist of, do you feel that you're getting the proper training on whatever programs, whatever data that you have program that you're using? Do you feel that you have the correct training? Do you feel that you have enough time? You don't have enough time, enough input? I mean, I mean, I guess that information would need to come in a form of, to get legitimate information, that would need to come in the form of a survey, so that the staff can feel comfortable telling us whether they feel that they're getting the proper training or not. Also, are they getting enough time and are they getting these programs enough time prior to having students to work with them on these programs? I mean, there's a ton of questions that can be asked within this survey. But if you want to wait for them, that's fine. And I guess I go out and do some research too and bring back a couple of questions too. So
that'd be perfect. I think that would be a good discussion. I like to have some footwork done before we launch into these discussions. So perfect. Okay. Well, we'll have that then at our next meeting.
Our next meeting should be scheduled, would be December 18th. Is that fine?
It's fine with me. Is that a Monday?
That's a Monday. It's the third Monday that we traditionally set up for, and it would be 3 o'clock.
Works for me.
With you, Mr. Shohan?
Good to go.
So, and if you'll just talk to Miss, I'll send her an email and just sort of, so she can present the professional development, and we can all just kind of think about how we get staff feedback from that. Okay, I think that is the end of the agenda items that I have. Are there any other comments from committee members?
Madam Chair, note, I'll follow up with Mr. Chowan on the layout.
Tomorrow, I'm going to show you how to put a CSV into Chat GPT and get it to do whatever you want.
I think I'll be missing action tomorrow, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Dallas, if you want to stay on, I can pop that spreadsheet up and show you a quick way to do a edit on it and pull up the sum of the columns once you break it down by department.
Yeah, so just for transparency, part of what I want to have happen is when this document is distributed, everybody who sees it can see the cost factors and where the cost factors are being originated. Because I think that helps mobilize support and helps even more people be aware of how much is already being done. So me doing it individually, you can show me that, but I still would like to see it as a part of the permanent structures.
Well, if you would rather see it permanently, let me get with my Excel people and try to get it done on the document itself, and it might save everybody a little time.
Works for me, sir.
Okay.
Also in terms of technology, about what the cameras would fall in technology, is that not correct?
The cameras for the school?
Yeah, cameras for schools.
Yes.
I like to get a clear understanding as well in terms of how much we're spending in the process of the function and working of those of cameras in our district, and where information is uploaded, and just kind of basically
Security.
Security and safety updated in terms of our security cameras thing. That may need to be executive session discussion, but just in terms of systematically where are we with that?
Yeah, and I mean, my take on it would be that would come out of David Grissom's report, Mr. Chohan. Because I know he's talked about cameras, and it would definitely need to be an executive session.
He has previously the old camera system was maintained by maintenance, but now with the new camera system being more IP based, it's going to fall under technology going forward. Mr. Grissom is our first point of contact with the safety and security part, but any of the back end functionality, how we store data, the length of time we store camera footage, we can answer those.
Yes, I believe that would be other technology. So yes, I would definitely like to I'll have that conversation.
I want to get with somebody from security and see. I would think that would need to be an executive session. So I'd rather not.
I'm almost certain it needs to be an executive session. I mean, so what are you saying?
I'm saying I think we would need to do that in executive session.
I'm sure we would need to do that in executive session. So, but my question is, when are we looking at getting that started? So
when are we going to have executive session?
Come again?
You want to know when we're going to present to an executive session on the cameras?
Right. In terms so that we give Mr. Chohan and his staff the appropriate time to bring that forward.
So yeah, I'm fine with whenever they can have it ready. We just want to make sure, because that is, a big part of our security and whatnot, that we have everything brought up correctly, right? So Mr. Chohan, if you want to get with Dave Grissom or whoever else you need to do and make sure that we can, what you can tell us, right? And what, needs to say in security.
And then we could just start the next tech committee meeting in executive session.
Right. Yeah.
Mr. Campbell, I see that you've joined us. Did you have any future topics for technology?
No, y'all cover about everything. That's fine with me.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So we've got those two items. We're going to have Ms. Beck-Varsky at our next meeting, and we're going to talk about PD, and we're going to come up with what the board could use to find out how the training is being received in the schools and if it's trickling through. And then if possible, we'll get it lined up to have that presentation. And Mr. Smith, you might just email me or Mr. Chohan the specific questions to make sure that, because I don't think it's going to be 100% technology. I'm assuming there'll be a security piece involved. So we just want to make sure we have all the right personnel there. And then I think that I don't have.
Actually, I will incorporate everyone who's involved in technology or technology committee, so that if they have something, then they can add to that email, including Mr. Dallas as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So that way we just have everything together that we need. And otherwise, I think we are ready for adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
All in favor? Second, all right. So you are adjourned. Thank you again, Mr. Shohan, for your all that information you provided.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Mr. Dallas.
I think
Hello?
he was in the box. So. Oh, no, you're still on there.
I think Mr. Sherman said that he was going to show you something.
Are you adjourned?